More than 1,000 years ago, nothing terrified Europe more than the men from the north. Not the legions of Rome, not the knights of the Franks, not the Saxon armies, but the Vikings. It began with a sound, a single horn echoing across the waves, deep, haunting, relentless. Villagers froze, priests dropped to their knees, and then the mist parted. Dragon-headed ships with blood-red sails sliced through the fog. At the prow stood men with pale hair and heavy beards, cloaked in fur, axes flashing like lightning. To English farmers, to French monks, to Spanish merchants, this was not a simple raid. It was a nightmare made flesh. And that nightmare would last for 3 centuries. Born of ice and fire, the Vikings came from Scandinavia, modern Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, a land of beauty but also brutality. For half the year, snow buried the fields, the soil was poor, summers were short. Farming alone could never sustain the growing population. So they turned to the sea. The sea gave them fish, seals, whales. But more importantly, it gave them a road, a highway to opportunity, conquest, and destiny. From childhood, Viking boys learned to row through storms, to hunt in forests, to fight in snow. Their bodies hardened, their spirits sharpened, and above them loomed their gods. Odin, the All-Father, who sacrificed an eye for wisdom. Thor, the Thunderer, whose hammer split mountains. And Valhalla, the great hall of the slain, where warriors who fell in battle feasted forever. To the Viking, death in battle was not an end. It was a reward, a gateway to eternal glory. This belief forged them into fearless men. For how can you defeat an enemy who welcomes death as triumph? Religion, when death became glory. Odin, lord of wisdom and war. Odin was not a god of peace. He was a god of knowledge, of cunning, of chaos in battle. He gave his eye for wisdom, and in return saw the fates of men. Every Viking believed Odin watched the battlefield. When a warrior fell, Valkyries would descend, lifting him to Valhalla, where mead flowed like rivers, where warriors fought by day and feasted by night. Thor, the hammer of strength. Thor, Odin's son, embodied raw power. With his hammer Mjolnir, he crushed giants and monsters, protecting mankind from chaos. Vikings carried hammer-shaped amulets for protection. They carved Thor's symbol onto their shields, believing that with Thor's blessing, no storm could sink them, no enemy could break them. Valhalla, the eternal reward. No idea shaped Viking courage more than Valhalla. To die in bed was shame. To die with axe in hand, drenched in blood, that was glory. That was the ticket to immortality. In Valhalla, no one grew old, no one weakened. Each morning brought battle, each night brought feasting with Odin himself. This faith made the Vikings terrifying. Faced with spears, they laughed. Surrounded by enemies, they roared. Because in their hearts they believed death today meant eternity tomorrow. Why Europe trembled. This religious fire set them apart. While Christian peasants prayed for peace after death, Vikings sought chaos, blood, and valor. They did not fear the grave. They longed for it, if it came with honor. That is why villages fled before a single axe was swung. Enemies did not just fear the weapons of the Northmen. They feared their mad devotion to glory. Giants among peasants. Picture this. An English farmer in the 9th century, barely 5'5", thin, frail, living on porridge and hard bread. Now beside him, a Viking. Nearly 6 feet tall,
broad-shouldered, muscles forged by rowing, hunting, endless labor. Blonde or red hair, long beard, eyes like frozen steel. The difference was like night and day. The peasants of Europe looked like starved children. The Vikings stood like giants out of legend. When these towering men leapt from their ships, English soldiers, barely 5'5", clutching rusted spears, felt like dwarves facing titans. The battle was often won before it even began. Weapons, simple but deadly. The Viking arsenal was not ornate. It was practical, efficient, and devastating. The axe. Every home had one. By day it cut wood. By night it split skulls. The bearded axe hooked shields and pulled weapons aside. The mighty Dane axe, taller than a man's chest, shattered armor and walls alike. The sword, rare, precious, reserved for chieftains. The legendary Ulfbert blades were centuries ahead of their time, steel so pure and sharp they seemed almost magical. A Viking sword was not just a weapon. It was inheritance, authority, the art of war and fear. Viking strategy was built on speed, surprise, and fear. Their ships, carved with dragon heads, struck terror long before they landed. Their chants of Odin, Odin, echoed like thunder, breaking enemy morale. Their painted faces and fur cloaks made them look like demons unleashed. They struck swiftly, raiding villages, monasteries, and towns before armies could muster. And when open battle came, the shield wall gave them unity and discipline. But perhaps their most powerful weapon was fear itself. Many kings did not even fight. They paid silver, called Danegeld, to make the Vikings leave. The Northmen knew sometimes fear bought more treasure than blood. Why all Europe trembled? For 3 centuries, Viking horns echoed from England to France, from Spain to the gates of Constantinople. No wall was too high, no river too shallow, no city too safe. They came like shadows, they left like storms. Behind them smoldered villages, looted churches, humbled kings. But worse than the fire and steel, they left behind terror. A terror so deep, it seeped into prayers across Europe. O Lord, deliver us from the fury of the Northmen. Conclusion. The shadow named Ragnar Lothbrok. Yet among the countless warriors of the North, one name rose above all others. A man both mortal and myth. A leader whose raids shook kingdoms and whose legend outlived centuries. Ragnar Lothbrok. If the Vikings were the storm, Ragnar was the darkness within it. His name was whispered like a curse, from monasteries to royal courts. And in the next chapter, we follow his path, from Northumbria to Paris, from blood to legend. The saga of Ragnar Lothbrok begins.